Okay. What are we doing here? Esports pools add 217C jaunty variant. Okay, finally some new material from those fucking lazy bums in the writing room. Next they'll be wanting me to come up with some of this shit. Right. Esports pools has fantasy and betting. Oh, that's a bit flat. Come on, you're the esports historian. You're a fucking legend in this business. Women hate you, men want to date you. Well, wait a minute, that's the wrong way around, isn't it? Or is it? They offer in-play betting, which is a unique feature that allows you to bet during a live match. I'm just not feeling it yet. Fuck. Remember what you're about. You don't go to Eastern Europe unless they're putting down longer paper than the fucking Unabomber Manifesto. You wear Yeezys to bed. Remember that guy. Esports pools offer fantasy and betting in games like CSGO, League of Legends, Dota 2, Overwatch. Where's the energy? Think about all the players you're going to roast. What about Smiths? What, the veteran French pro from the Source and CSGO scenes who's won majors and played a key supportive and at times minor starring role in some of history's greatest teams. That's not foreign. No. Oh, the shit Yoles Noobs guy. Yeah, the guy who just couldn't hit a cow's arse with a banjo. Yes, that's it. Yes, right now. I'm coming in. Remember, pros tweet at you on a regular basis because your opinion matters more to them than their own fucking fathers. Yeah. Now I'm feeling it. Pick the right players or bet on the right teams and you too could win skins and cash at esports pools. Fuck. Are we done? Okay, good. I'm going to need a minute here now. Oh, yeah, no, listen, that's a real trip being inside that guy's head. God, how could anyone live like that? I'm going to need a kale smoothie and a massage stat. Coming into this major, I've seen something that has absolutely baffled and puzzled me. I have never seen anything like this. I have seen top-level pro players who are both attending this major and playing in it currently, criticizing the major beforehand in the run-up to the major, and during it while they're still playing before the major's even finished. And I have to say, under other circumstances, I would just call out vague pro players and I would leave the message to get to those players and for them to perhaps take it on board. But in this particular case, I have to call out one specific team who has made this almost a group approach to downplaying and criticizing the very existence of the major and what it stands for. So I've got to call out SK Gaming, the best team in Counter-Strike right now. Now, I understand they have had roster issues due to the rules around this major, and I even feel them on some of that. So you've seen in interviews, most notably Fallen and Taco, but to a lesser degree, Bolts, their newest player, and Coldzera, their star player, not quite as bad, but still criticising key elements of the major. And the Bolts one, admittedly, in line with the roster issues, is a lot more understandable because he's a new player and he actually cannot play at the major. I can understand why he would be upset by it. But one of the things they have done is imply that this now isn't a real major, or this doesn't feel like a real major. Right? Sure, at times, like Taco's tweet, may well have just been banter. Problem is, it fits in with opinions that he and others have expressed elsewhere, which essentially are more articulate and more eloquent versions of that it's not a real major, doesn't count, it doesn't feel like a real major. Don't ever do this. They've also implied that majors somehow no longer matter as much or, don't have as much prestige and it's better to win other events. Right? First of all, let's just address that at the outset. This is a real major. Newsflash, PSA to Brazilian players. This is a real major. This one counts. All of the majors are real majors. They all count. It doesn't matter if you win the hardest major ever or you win the worst major ever. You have still won a major. No one can take that away from you. At the end of your career, whoever wins this major will be able to say, I was a major champion. And nothing you say can change that. They will still be a major champion. And you can do your best to downplay it or imply this one shouldn't count. It will count, and it can't be downplayed to the extent it no longer matters as a major. Winning the major includes including this major here, is still the biggest accomplishment of anyone's career. As in, if you've won a different major, so in the SK and of SK players, you won MLG Columbus, you won ESL One Clone 2016. Those all count overall in the same category as this major here, no matter what you say. Now, yes, certainly you can argue other majors in history might have been harder to win, might have been, all in terms of who won it and who they beat, might have been more prestigious in that context. But no other tournament aside from a major will ever count as much as this major does here. None of your other victories last year in 2017 count as much as whoever wins this one major here in terms of individually each title. Now, does that mean it's the best tournament? No. Actually, I don't think this is the best tournament at all. I don't think this major is as good as other tournaments we have in the scene. It's got quite a poor format. Doesn't always have all the top teams due to what I would call a flawed qualification system. But it is still the tournament that matters most until the next major. This is the number one accomplishment you can achieve in this span of about 6 to 8 months since the last major. Doesn't matter. If you were SK, if you were to win a third major by winning this tournament, that will be way better historically in terms of significance and meaning than winning 2 ESL or DreamHack events, which are non-majors, no matter how good they are. Now, here's the thing. I agree with the premise to a degree that other tournaments are getting close and that other tournaments have better formats or better qualification systems, but they haven't got that label. They are not majors. And ultimately, when you do people's resume, the majors go at the top, then we go to the other tournaments. So you've gone too far with this because you're not just pointing out the context of majors. You're absolutely criticizing the very existence of a major, what it means for a major to be here. And as a result, there's a knock-on effect elsewhere. So you know what? The premise of this, quite simply, and Brazilians should love this because they love that saying, respect Brazil, respect the major. And what I mean by respect the major is respect what the major represents, what it stands for. This is the World Championship of Counter-Strike. This is the biggest and most prestigious accomplishment in a professional Counter-Strike player's career. When you make a resume of all the things you have accomplished, this is in the first sentence. This is the first accomplishment of them all. Doesn't matter if you win 15 DreamHack Masters events, assuming none of them are majors. Doesn't matter if you win every Epicenter. Doesn't matter if you win every Star Ladder. Doesn't matter if you win every insert other name of a tournament. Majors will be at the top. Nothing you say will change that, but you certainly do give a game a bad look by going ahead and saying it. This is the ultimate goal for every top player in their career. When I did that article a while back, like top 20 players to never win a major, some of those players, like Guardian, have accomplished much more overall than many players who've won majors, but that doesn't matter. This is still the number one accomplishment, and he needs that on his resume to be able to compete with the other people who are in his peer group, who also have accomplished a lot in all other tournaments and all other facets of individual play, but haven't won a major, or in his sense have won a major, and he hasn't. He needs to get that to get himself closer. SK Gaming saying that this somehow, or suggesting in any way or implying that this isn't the ultimate goal of every player. Well, you know what? Imagine I took both your majors away from you. So MLG Columbus and ESL One Clone, both in 2016. Imagine I took those events away and instead I gave you back events that I think had superior formats and in certain cases better teams. So I'll give you from the same year DreamHack Masters Malmo and Epicenter. Now you've just won those 2 titles, but you didn't win the 2 majors. You're going to take that deal, are you? Do you think that's a fair deal? Is it a good deal? Even though those are better tournaments, those are in some senses more competitive tournaments? No, because you know what? They're not as big, they're not as prestigious, they don't matter as much for your career, and I don't think you're going to be crying when you win DreamHack Masters Malmo. I don't think you're going to be in tears if you win Epicenter, like Fur was after he won MLG Columbus, which was quite a poignant, quite a moving moment. Actually, it was a very special moment in his career, in your careers, and in the careers and in the history of Counter-Strike. Quite frankly, what it meant for a Brazilian team to come from nothing and in the space of less than a year and a half to win the biggest prize in Counter-Strike history. I didn't complain that this major right now isn't a real major or doesn't feel like a real major due to them not hiring enough talent. In my opinion, they didn't hire enough talent. They haven't done the major justice in terms of having the best people there. But I didn't say, oh, it's not a real major. This doesn't feel like a major. I criticised their hiring choices. I criticised aspects of how they set it up. I've criticised many aspects of it. But I never will disrespect the premise of a major. You can criticize the tournament organizer or the rules or the format, but don't ever downplay the very premise of a Counter-Strike World Championship and imply something else is now more important just because things have gone badly for you and they haven't gone exactly your way as you want them to be, and you don't feel like you have the best chance right now due to other factors such as the rules and the decisions of the tournament organizer and Valve, the developer. That's got nothing to do with the major and what that represents. Also, have a little bit of class. Say something after the major. Why are you attacking the very premise of the major while it is still going on, while you are still playing in the major? Imagine being the team who wins this major, assuming it isn't SK Gaming, who, by the way, have a very good chance to win this major. Imagine being the team that wins this major, and you've won it, and for you, it's the biggest moment of your career. It's the best moment of your life, maybe. You've accomplished it after all that hard work, all those hours, all those grueling matches, all the times you didn't win a major, perhaps if it's a new winner, as it might be, in fact, with someone like FaZe. Now imagine this, you just won that, and you've had to read all these comments in the lead up to it. You've seen the number one team in the game saying that it doesn't feel like a major, majors don't count as much, this isn't a real major even, and this is the best accomplishment of your life. It's been downplayed and shit on by people who you probably respect, people who are your peers, people who you want to contend against in majors to hopefully win them and accomplish that ultimate goal. Now imagine, if you're the SK Gaming guys, if when you had won an MLG Columbus as Luminosity Gaming, the other players in the tournament, so let's say from teams that were actually favoured ahead of your team, so Natus, Vincere, Fnatic, imagine if during the tournament they were tweeting and doing interviews the whole time saying, well, of course, this doesn't really feel like a major. It's not a real major to us, because the thing is, we've got star players who are injured, actually. So the thing is, we're the best teams in the world. We've actually beaten Luminosity many times and in key matches. They've never actually won a tournament before. So if they were to win this one, wouldn't really be a real major, would it? You know, I mean, we beat them in the tournaments that actually matter. And really, it's the other tournaments around the major that are going to matter more because of this injury that set us back, you know, when we were beating them, when we had our players in superstar form. Just imagine that they tweeted out, you know what, due to our injuries, yeah, well done for winning, but doesn't really feel like a key major. Wouldn't be very cool, would it? Would kind of fuck with you a little bit. Maybe not on a big level, but it wouldn't be very cool for the history of the game, would it, or for your accomplishment? Now, here's the thing. If in a few months after the major, you make exactly the same criticism, you say, to me personally, it didn't feel like a major, actually. I felt as though there were issues, right? I still won't be that cool with it, but I will say this. Once you've had some distance, once time has passed, it's a bit safer. It feels a bit more reasonable to then criticize it because it's not going on at the same time. Then people can just say, well, you shit talking, you're salty, or that's just your opinion, whatever. But you're not denigrating the thing as it's happening and potentially downplaying and ruining someone's amazing life experience. Contrast this major with past majors if you really think that it doesn't matter so much or that they're not as prestigious. So, as I said, olofmeister and Guardian didn't come out and take away the value of MLG Columbus and say, you know what, your first major, your first big championship actually, didn't really count on the basis that we were injured. Now, they definitely didn't do that at the time. And in fact, at the time, despite having these injuries, they didn't even let on how bad their injuries are. Because you know what? I don't know that this is necessarily what they were thinking, but in doing so, they didn't rob an Astralis or a Na'Vi or a Luminosity Gaming of the glory of winning that major by saying this one doesn't count because we're not in peak form. Guess what? Astralis at ESL One Clone 2016, where, first of all, dupreeh was out because of injury, and then they couldn't bring him back. And then secondly, they couldn't use Kjaerbye, who was one of their best players and a young star that they hoped would turn their team around, because of the roster lock, because he'd played for Dignitas. Now, despite not being able to use him, they didn't tweet out and do interviews saying, you know what, don't really mind about this major and having used on it because not really run a real major anyways. It doesn't. Majors aren't that prestigious anyway. I'd rather win DreamHack later and Starladder. As long as we win those, who cares about this one? You know, we can't actually use Zonic for, you know, Kjaerbye, so we're just going to practice with Kjaerbye. We don't give a fuck about this major, actually. You know, who cares really? No, what they did was nothing. They just played the games. They sucked it up. They dealt with it. They could afterwards have criticised it or claimed it. I'm not sure in every interview. Perhaps they did say, oh, I think these rules are a bit silly with Kjaerbye. Could be the case. They didn't imply that the major itself didn't count, though, did they? They didn't do interviews where, for example, in the round of 8, the quarterfinals of that tournament, where they lost to Virtus.pro in overtime games with Device carrying, they didn't say, well, see, after us, who VP narrowly beat, and only because we had our coach playing, VP then took SK to the limit. So you know what? If SK had really played us, maybe we'd have beaten them. Maybe this title doesn't really count because we didn't get a chance to play them with our full strength lineup. No, they didn't do any of that. They just left it to be a legit title. Now, teams who lost at these majors, still respected the premise. Even teams who got busted out early on who thought they were going to go way further. NIP at that tournament, they didn't go, it's not a real major anyway, because all the teams were in proper form, and besides, we really care more about the other tournaments. No, they didn't. Now, funnily enough, people might think, wait a minute, Thorin, didn't you make a video, though, about how MLG Columbus and other tournaments afterwards needed an asterisk next to them called the Olaf and Guardian asterisk? Yes, I did. And you know what the very point of that video, as I stressed and emphasized for the first 10 minutes of it, is that it was about providing the historical context of a tournament. I never said the major doesn't count. I said at this particular major, it has a very specific type of asterisk, just as, by the way, ESL One Cologne does, because of the randomizer, because of Cobblestone, the brand new map being introduced, and because of all the bullshit that went on that tournament. I never said that the major didn't count, or that it's worse than other tournaments, and that other tournaments had superseded the major, and the very premise of a major no longer made sense unless things somehow were changed to how I wanted them. For example, to have Olaf and Guardian playing. Now, funnily enough, Guardian himself did also make comments which people might mistakenly construe as being along these lines. But actually what he did is he highlighted the problem with the roster rules. He didn't say this doesn't mean it's a real major, and he actually did it in a very classy way, implying that if he was to win the major, but without SK having bolts there, who were the team that had beaten him and looked very good against his team, that it wouldn't feel the same, it wouldn't be as good. That's a very cool move to do, actually. That's the right way to criticize it, because you criticize all the right elements, and you don't somehow disparage the very premise of the major. Now, here's the thing. There is a caveat in which it would be fine to attack the premise of the major. If there was some issue of institutionalized systemic discrimination in the major itself, if there was racism in terms of who was allowed to compete or qualify and in what way, if there was sexism in terms of who was allowed to compete and qualify and in what way, if there was some national bias to give seeding to one team or a special slot to one team just because of where the major was taking place or the tournament organizer, now yes, this would be a time to attack the major and say this doesn't feel like a major, this isn't right, this isn't what the major's supposed to be, this is going to make other tournaments more prestigious. I would agree with you on that premise, but that's not what's happening here. These are roster rules which could have affected the worst team only, and it ended up affecting the best team only. Well, not only, I guess Team Liquid also had the same problem, but that's not the same as the premise no longer being valid. Now, I have to say, as a very small shout out as well, I'm just going to go ahead and call out other top players and talent. Now, if I say something wacky, or a player that we don't like Simple, or someone else considered arrogant comes out and says something that someone who it's considered agreed upon to attack publicly, if they came out and said some shit like this and there was no SK players saying it, I don't think people would sit back and go, this is cool. I think they would reply to them on Twitter. I think they would attack the premise. I think they would subtweet them and say, I disagree with that completely. The majors still matter. But all this top players and talent have just sat back and let these guys do it just because they're number one. What, you think it's cool that these guys are just disparaging the very premise of the major that you're competing at right now? You think it doesn't matter whether you agree or not, you just shouldn't make a comment, right? Just because these guys are CSGO royalty, you're just going to let them shit on the very premise of the best moments that we're hoping to craft in Counter-Strike and the most meaningful parts of our history. For fuck's sake, come on, man, grow some balls. SK Gaming may well not be treating it like a major. By what they've said, yeah, I actually believe them. I think it's something to that. But guess what? I even agree that the way they're behaving seems like they aren't treating it like a proper major. And in a way, that is significant, right? That one of the first top-level teams to ever feel that way is coming out and saying so. But I think in doing so, they are ignoring their own responsibility in that scenario. Because here's the thing. Yes, I'm with them on the fact that the major cycle lasts too long and the rule issues make it so that people are very severely hamstrung or handicapped on when they can actually make roster moves. I don't want it that way. I would rather it was a shorter period, 2 or 3 weeks before the major, so people can figure their shit out when it goes wrong, as it was going wrong with Phelps. I agree with you. I'm with you on that one. But let's not ignore the fact that, first of all, that doesn't make the major no longer meaningful or a real major. You have the best chance of any team ever who had a stand-in to win this tournament. But why aren't you just saying, right, well, it's the rules suck, we don't like the rules, here's what we don't like the rules, but we're going to try anyway. No. Constantly in interviews, they're telling us, we haven't practiced with Phelps anyway. No, in fact, we're not practicing with him at all. We force him to play bolts or spots. That's your choice. The major never made you do that. Valve never made you do that. No one made you do that. You chose to do that. That has nothing to do with the roster rules. I don't buy this binary logic, this false dichotomy that you can only practice for this event 100% or practice for future events 100%. First of all, what? You can't give this tournament 1 week's practice to get yourself in decent shape and have a chance to win. Not only that, you're going to make out like that practice, a week's practice now, would mean that you'd be so far behind on practicing with bolts you won't win the future tournaments. So you're implying right now you're practicing with bolts, are you? You're not practicing with Phelps right now. You're not playing any games with them at all. Child, please. If you are, then you're idiots. And if you're not, then you're just liars. So I don't even know why that keeps being stressed as a key point. A week's boot camp or practice for a major is enough. There's many teams that are great, that have had great performances, that barely had proper practice or boot camps for some of these majors and didn't even think they'd be making it that deep. Now, this is a topic I care about a lot because I revere greatness and I care a lot about the historical context of accomplishments. So you know what? I am actually unique in history in that sense. Nowadays, people get it. People are on board with the magnitude of these things. People have got the message that these are the things we want to emphasize and remember forever. But you know what? For a long time in CS history, the whole historical element wasn't considered important or cool in the same way as it is now. People just thought, it's another tournament. I hope I win. I hope I win the money. I hope I get famous maybe. And then you know what? If I do or if I don't, it's on to the next. You know what? I don't really want to talk about the stuff in the past. I don't want to be a nerd like you guys. You know, I'm kind of a cool guy. I play because I'm good at the game, not necessarily because I'm into the game that much. Well, you know what? I always used to say this to some of those players who are my friends. One day, all that money will be gone. One day you won't be famous and remembered in the same way as you are right now. All that will remain rather, is the memories of these great accomplishments and the significance of those accomplishments and being able to be in that hall of giants at the table of legends, being able to say, I won 3 or 4 of the majors. How many do you get? What, 2? Oh, you're going to have to square up as to how you're better than me then. If I'd have been there in your era, I'd have beaten you. That's what matters. Those are the moments where you watch my reflections with players who retired. Those are the ones they care about. So you know what? Let's just make this clear. Criticize the tournament organizer all you want. Criticize the roster rules all you want. I'm even with you on them. Criticize the format. I fucking hate the format. I've made videos all the time about it. Criticize the performance and players of the players and the talent at the event if you want. You're absolutely justified to do so if you really believe that and feel that way. Don't ever disrespect the major and what it stands for though.
Guys, I'm BW. I have won 3 majors in CSGO and this is Thorin's YouTube channel.
I've created a Patreon, so if you're interested and able to support my work financially, then check out the link in the description box below and become a part of the Skrilluminati today.